As in most projects, you have to make a mess in order to build something. AutoCAD is the same way. In order to create your designs, we will have to make objects in them that ultimately we don't want. A lot of times those objects come in the form of like a construction line or some sort of drawing aid. Whatever they are, they need to go away. So to do this, we use the erase command. You can find the command in the ribbon right here in the Modify panel. In this chapter, you're going to see that we're going to spend a lot of time here in the Modify panel. Click the Erase button, and then select an object or objects that you want to be erased. Press Enter, and they go away. Now you can start the command first, or you can make your selections first, then start the Erase command, and then they go away. You can type in the word erase, or just the letter E. Press Enter, pick your objects, press Enter again, and they go away. If you select your objects first, then start the Erase command, then you're done. You're not in the command anymore. I can start my line command and draw something. Now you can also select objects and then hit the delete key. Either of these methods with the Erase command or the delete key, they work the same way. They do the same exact thing. Now, what if you accidentally erased something, like the oops command? You can type that in, press Enter, and that will bring in the last things that you erased or deleted. That's nice. You say, well, why can't I use the undo command? Well, you can. You can go back, find all of the things you erased, and undo it. But let's say I accidentally delete or erase my pool. And then I do a whole bunch of work, like recreate another building right next to this. And then one over here, etc. Well, I don't want to undo all of my work. I just want to get my pool back. So if I undo everything, this is all going to be gone. I don't want to do that. I can just type in oops, and it brings it back for me. And I didn't lose any work. Just a minor inconvenience. So that's great. Now sometimes though, when you erase your objects or you're doing some other work, you're zooming in and out and things get messed up on their screen. Your drawing's not really affected, but something's just kind of screwy with your computer. Sometimes, for example, a circle or an arc will get segmented, meaning it won't be a round, smooth curve. It'll be just a series of jagged lines. That happens. Or when I zoom into these points, they're too big. Things like that. Or sometimes when you delete an object, there'll be a screen remnant, meaning your video card on your computer just didn't completely render your screen properly. That happens. When it does, just type in REA for Regen All. That will clear it up. We've seen that before when we've, zoomed out and started panning and just can't pan anymore. Type in REA for Regen All, and it will fix that. It will also re-render your points so that they'll be in the proper size, assuming you've set them up to be a size relative to your screen. So that's the erase. You can select your objects first or after you start the command. You can use the erase command itself, or you can use the delete key on your keyboard, whichever way works best for you. Keeping your work area neat and tidy is very useful in AutoCAD. That's the idea behind the delete duplicates command. It's not really new or anything, but it was fully installed into AutoCAD 2012. So that means in 2013 here that it's going to work wonderfully. It also means that it's in AutoCAD LT. The delete duplicates command is also known as the overkill command, and it comes from the Express Tools pack. The Express Tools pack were once extra tool sets that you had to purchase separately or additionally when you bought AutoCAD. It did things in there that AutoCAD didn't, and they were really cool. A lot of the features now over the years have been fully integrated natively into AutoCAD. That's great for AutoCAD LT users because those commands are now a part of AutoCAD LT. You see, the Express Tools packet wouldn't work with AutoCAD LT. That was one of the downgrades that you had to go through in order to buy AutoCAD LT at a lesser price than AutoCAD, but that's okay. So the overkill command will delete duplicate objects. It'll merge some polylines together and get rid of messy line work. It removes redundant geometry. Let's open up a file. Let's look at the Chapter 6 folder and take a look at the architectural annotation scaling and multi-liter example file. It's a long title, I know, but it serves a lot of purposes. This is a simple drawing. It has several architectural and structural elevational views. It's a stairway. You can see the stairs here, the handrails, some hallways, doors, windows, etc., and other various views of them. Well, this is an older drawing, and it has some issues in it. It happens. For example, if you see this line right here, there are several lines that are there. It happens. Things get copied, they get borrowed, they get moved, and it builds up. Well, how do you get rid of them? If I select it, I don't know which one of these they are. This is the selection cycling that we're seeing. We talked about it in an earlier chapter. If that gets in the way, then you may want to just turn that off. You can do that here on the status bar. And now when I come here, I don't know what I'm clicking. But if I use the list command, which we'll talk about in another chapter, it will tell you about the things that you're selecting. As you can see, it found 2 items. Press enter. And there are 2 lines. They're identical. They have all the same attributes and properties about them. Well, I can go through and delete them or erase them one at a time. Say, okay. Bring that last one back. Or I can use the overkill command. Just type in overkill, press enter, and then select the objects I want to check. And before I do that, we see here that this is just 1 line. If I list it out, select it, oh no, there are 2 of them there. So let's erase one of them. So if I list it out again, type in LI for list, use your crossing window for selection, you see there's only 1 object there. So that line's good. Let's use the overkill. Press enter, and let's do a crossing window and select all of these items. There are 128 objects found. There's clearly not 128. There are several here, but not 128. If I press enter, I get this delete duplicate objects control box. I can ignore objects by any of these properties. Color, layer, line type, etc. So if I want to ignore everything that's, different colors or the same color, I can tell AutoCAD to do that. I can combine collinear objects, which is a nice little trick. They'll make them into 1 object. Or I can, maintain different associative objects, which we'll talk about later what those are, and some other things. Mostly it's going to delete them and get rid of the objects that are duplicate. Click OK, and there we go. 63 duplicates deleted. Now it left this one here, which was great. If we list out again, there's only 1 object here. That's fantastic. And that's essentially what it does. It will ignore everything that's unique and get rid of everything that's a duplicate. So if you get a drawing from someone else and you're having issues with lines, you're trying to move them, you're trying to copy them, and it's just not working, well, that could be because of multiple objects. See, these are still good here, but if we look down here, it says 1 found, okay, 1 found, 3 found on that selection. If you see right here, it tells you how many you selected with that pick and how many you have selected total. So here I could go and delete 1, they're still there, delete another one, it's still there, delete another one, okay, that one's good. If I had to do that over and over again, it would take forever and I would have no idea what I've been able to fix and what still needs fixing. So if I zoom extents, overkill, enter, and I literally pick everything, press enter, then OK. It found 156 duplicates and they were deleted, and it found 98 overlapping objects. So it cleaned up my drawing quite a bit. And that can be very useful. It does a lot of things. It keeps your line work clean and it reduces your file size. So if you have to send a file to somebody via email or something, then that will help that out too. The ability to move and copy objects with ease is why CAD replaced board drafting many years ago. These tasks are not easy to do on the drawing board, but they're very easy to do in AutoCAD. Move and copy, which is what we're going to look at in this section, work essentially the same way, but with a few differences. The copy command leaves the original object alone, and it keeps repeating. To move an object, you just start the move command by typing move or the letter M on the command line. It's also found here in the ribbon. Let's open up a file so that we can have some objects to move and copy with. In the Chapter 6 folder, look up the blocks and tables. Open up that file. This is an architectural drawing, and it has some lighting arrangements, some doors, some walls, and window treatments here. Very simple drawing, but it gets its point across. So to move something, start the move command. You can type in the letter M or the word move or pick it from the ribbon here. Now you select your objects. You can pick one object at a time, like the text here, or you can pick multiple objects, like the lighting here. Once you've selected everything, press enter, and now you need a base point. Pick that base point, and that's where you will grab those objects from. And then reposition it wherever you need to. That moved it. It takes the objects you selected, deletes them, and puts them where you tell it to. That's the move command. Remember, when moving an object or even copying an object, because they work the same way, you need a base reference point and then a displacement point. The base point is the place where you grab the object from. It could be anywhere in your file, or it could be a specific point on that object, or it could be a specific point on any object. If we use the move command again, pick our base point, and then as you move around, you'll see that the object is being moved relative to where you first picked your base point at. So for example, if I want to move this sink, I can start the move command, select it, press enter, use my object snaps, my O snaps. I can type in mid for midpoint. Pick the midpoint of the back of the sink here. That's where I'm grabbing it from. Now, wherever I put that sink, that's where it's going to go, relative to the middle of that sink. So let's say I put it in the laundry room now. I'll type in NEA for nearest, press enter, and it will put the middle of that sink in the back of it right where I select on that wall. That was the move command. Now that's great. You can be exact dead on with where you pick your object from and exact dead on from where you put it. Or you can just casually pick a spot and put it somewhere. It's up to you. AutoCAD will see it as being exact, even if it isn't to you. So keep that in mind. Now the copy command works exactly the same way. You just select your objects, you pick a base point, and then you pick your insertion point. So you type in the word copy or the letters CP for copy. Now don't hit C, that's circle. You want CP for copy. Or you can find it here in the ribbon. It's right by the move command. Now we're going to select our sink again, press enter. We're going to use the midpoint there, and we're going to make a copy of it, put it back where it was. Say, well, I don't have a real good selection point here, so I can't line it up exactly. So that's one thing you want to make sure of, is that when you copy or move something, you grab it from an appropriate point. Well, that's okay, we're pretty close here. We're going to use the move command again, select the sink, press enter, and now pick end point. If I grab the end point here, and now I use the perpendicular O-snap, it'll put this line perpendicular to that line we selected, and it's in the right spot. And since it's perpendicular, it moved it orthogonally, or straight, horizontal to the left, and put it in the right place. Most of the time you will move or copy objects from a point on the object. And that's not always true though. You will have instances where you need to move something relative to another location. For example, I can move or copy this sink, press enter, relative to the end of this wall. Now, if I want it to be the exact same distance when I move it over here, it is. I can put in another counter that's the exact same distance that it was before. And there you go. I got it right on the first try. So keep that in mind. Many times you will need to change the angular position of an object. It could be the position of a house on a piece of property or a chair in a room. Perhaps a gear needs to be rotated in your drawing. There are many reasons that you may need to rotate something. AutoCAD is very specific on how it rotates objects. As you might have expected, you type in the word rotate to get the rotate command, or RO, or you can go to the ribbon. In the Home tab, the Modify panel, the rotate command is right here, right in the middle. Let's open up a drawing. Let's look at the rotation examples file for Chapter 6 and open that up. Here we already have a few lines drawn at specific angles and some text objects to let us know exactly what those angles are. So start the rotate command. Select the object that you want to rotate. You can pick one, or you can pick several. You can pick any type of object in AutoCAD. Press enter. Now you need to pick a base point of rotation. That's the center point of where you're going to rotate from. If your ortho command is on, let's turn it off. Press the F8 key to toggle that off. As you can see, we're rotating around that base point. Think of it as a circle, and that's the center of the circle. That's your center of rotation. Here, everything will pivot around that point. The second point you select determines the angle amount you're rotating. So where I pick is where it will end up. Or you can type in an angle amount. So let's rotate this 120 degrees. And there you go. We can also rotate in the opposite direction. Select your objects, pick your base point, and then type in a negative number. Negative 120 in this case. Press enter. And that puts our lines right back to where we started from. A positive angle of rotation will rotate your selected objects in a counterclockwise direction. Same way when AutoCAD draws an arc, it draws it in a counterclockwise direction. So it starts here on the right, moves up and to the left, then down to the right. The negative direction, or the negative angle, goes in a clockwise way, 360 degrees. Now the angle of rotation is based off of the horizon. You may have noticed that, or due east, or to the right of your screen. Your angle starts there horizontally, and it comes out from your base point and then goes up from there. So when I grab this line drawn at 0, it looks like I'm rotating it from the line itself. Well, I am in this case. But if I grab one at 45 degrees, the base point, as you can see, I'm starting off here, which is my angle of 0. And as I rotate up, the line that I'm rotating has a 45 degree angle from where I'm at. So if I need this line to go 45 degrees, I just type in 45 degrees. It's relative. But if I need it to go to the 60 degree line, I have to do some math. I can go 60 degrees, which is where I want to go, minus where I'm at, leaving me at 15 degrees. So I have to tell it, rotate positively 15 degrees. And there it is. There are two lines here now. If I want it to go to a specific angle, I can do something different. I can type in my rotation command, select my line, enter, my base point, and if I want it to go to that 60, I can just type in rotate 15 degrees. But sometimes you have no idea what that angle is. You don't know what the angle is you need to be at, and you don't know what the angle is that you're currently at. So For example, let's cancel that out and let's just draw a line at any angle. We have no idea what this line is, what the angle of it is. So let's start the rotate command. Select the line, press enter. Now pick your base point, which is right here. Use your O snaps. Now type in R for reference. Press enter. We want to pick a reference angle or a reference line. So typically you're going to want to pick the exact same base of rotation point again. And then you want to pick a point on your line, which is going to be the end point in this case. And now instead of starting at the horizontal position, I'm starting here. And I can put it exactly now where I want it to. Right there. We zoom in, we can see this line is drawn right over the top of it. So I had no idea where I was at, but I put it exactly where I wanted it to go. And that's a great feature. So let's look at these angles here, and we'll do the example again. Type in RO, pick your 15, enter, base point. If I want this to go to 30, and I type in 15 degrees, it goes there. If I rotate again, select my object, enter, pick my base point, and now go to reference. You can pick it right on the command line or just type in the letter R. Repick your base point of rotation, pick the end point, and now type in the number 30. It went right to the 30-degree line. It didn't rotate 30 degrees, but it went to the 30-degree line. So that's fantastic. If I have a line drawn at some weird angle that I don't know, I could take the time and measure that angle again, or if I want it to just be horizontal and go to the 0 angle, start the command, rotate, pick my base point, pick my objects, hit R for reference, my same base point of rotation, my same point here, and now I type in 0. And I'm horizontal. That's a cool trick. So you have two basic ways to rotate your objects. One is by a relative angle, and then one is to an absolute angle. There'll be different cases and different reasons to use either one. It just depends on their situation. Now there was another option. You may have noticed it. If we pick our base point again, of copy. Copy will rotate the line work again, but it will also leave the original where it is. I type in 90, there it goes. So it copied and rotated that line. So that's something that could be very useful to you as well. Size is relative, and so is scale. Sometimes you need an object to be bigger or to be smaller than what it is. In order to do that, you can use the scale command. The scale command will change the size of an object or objects according to a scale factor. That factor can be any type of positive and non-zero number. You can scale something by a factor of 2 or by a factor of 0.5. Open up the Scale Examples file. Here we have two boxes. One looks like a square, the other on the bottom looks more like a rectangle. Let's look at the top. The Scale command is found right here in the Modify panel on the Home tab in the ribbon. Or you can type in the word Scale, or just the two letters SC. Not the letter S, that will be Stretch. That's another command we're going to look at that's extremely useful. But the Scale command is very simple to use. Start the command, press Enter, and then select your objects. We're going to pick everything here, all of these lines. Press Enter, and now you need to pick a reference point. This point is typically a place on the object, but not always, and it will stay here. So if I pick the end of this box, or this bottom left-hand corner, that point will stay as it is and where it is. But as I scale up or down, as you can see, the box becomes larger or smaller. I'm going to turn off my running O snaps by pressing F3 because they're going to get in the way right now. I don't necessarily want to snap to something, but I can if I want, but right now I don't want to. Okay, so our base point will remain stationary. That's a reference point. And everything will be scaled according to the number that we give it, the scale factor, and be referenced by that scale from that point we picked. Now your second point is the scale amount or the scale factor. As I move away from that point, AutoCAD registers a distance. That's the scale factor. As you can see, the number on my dynamic input changes. Right now, it's right at about 2.8 or 3.2. So it's right around a factor of 3. So this box is 3 times larger than the original. That's what it does. If I were to type in the number 1, it would remain the same because it's a scale factor of 1. If I want the box to be twice as big, I type in the number 2, press enter. Now the box is twice as big. If I want something to be smaller, I select everything, pick my base point, and if I want to be half as small, returning it back to its original size, I type in a decimal, then a number, in this case 0.5, and it's back to where it was. Anything less than the number 1 in a scale factor will make the objects smaller. Anything greater than 1 will make them bigger. If you want to keep the original, you can use the copy option. Select your objects, press enter, select your base point, and now you'll see on the command line that there is an option for copy. Pick it, or type in the letter C, type in the number 2. So our original is still there, but now we have a new one that's twice as big. Now here's a trick that I've used to divide things into different sizes with the scale factor. Let's say I want to draw this box. It's made up of 4 different lines. And let's say that I want to draw 2 more vertical lines in this box so that I have 3 equal sections. So one here and one here approximately. Let's use the scale command to help us out. Say, well, how is that going to happen? Well, I'll show you. Since I want to divide this up into 3 equal sections, I can use the scale command on this top line and reduce it by 1/3. Now, you don't have to put in a decimal. You can put in a fraction, 1/3. Press enter. And now this line is 1/3 of what it used to be. If I use the copy command, I'll show you. Turn on my running O-snaps again so I don't have to type them in. Grabbing the endpoint, turning off my ortho, snap once, snap twice, I'm back to where I was. 3 equal sections. Now I can use my copy command again, but this time copy this leg, snap to my endpoints of those lines, and there you go. I have no idea how long this side of the box is, but I do know that I just divided it up into 3 equal parts. That's a neat trick that you can use with the scale command. Sometimes in AutoCAD, we need to make existing objects shorter or longer. They need to be stretched. To do this, AutoCAD has a command called stretch. Let's open up our stretch examples file. In it, we have a line, an ellipse, and a simple gasket. We're going to stretch these different objects in different ways using several different methods. So you start the stretch command by typing stretch on your command line, or just the letter S. The stretch command is also found in the Modify panel and the Home tab on the ribbon, right here. Start your command. Select your objects with a window or a crossing window. Press Enter. Pick a base point. Right now my ortho command is on, which is fine. And then pick a displacement point. And there you go. You just stretched it. The stretch command moves the vertices of objects. That means if you select an object by picking it, or if the object is completely enclosed in your crossing window selection, then the entire object will move, like this circle did and like this arc did. Now, this line on the top and the one on the bottom, the ends here didn't move on the left side. But the ends that we had included in our crossing window did. Let me show you again. I'm using a crossing window, and I'm fully engulfing or fully enclosing the arc and then this circle inside it. Those will move. So the stretch command can also be used like a move command. Now that I've picked all of my objects, I press Enter. I pick a reference point and then my point of displacement. And I can stretch it all the way over here. Now you get a bit of a preview here. You can see the circle and the arc relative to each other haven't changed. And the endpoints of the two lines that are connected to the arc don't change either. But the parts that aren't selected remain the same, like this endpoint and this endpoint. So I can select this much and do that. I can select this much here, getting just the arc and part of these two lines, and do this. Since there were no vertices on a circle, it grabbed the entire circle. But I can do this. Now I can use my Shift key to unselect that circle, press Enter, and stretch it. And that's cool. Let's use the stretch command again. I'm selecting the arc and these two lines. I picked this one because I couldn't get around it. So let's unselect it. Press Enter. And now let's snap to the center, press Enter, of this arc. And now we're going to snap to the center of the circle, putting them back where they need to be. You can also make your selections for the stretch command with a regular window. Now it only grabs these two objects because it's a window, not a crossing window, so it won't grab the endpoints of these two lines because it can't. So when I pick my reference point and my displacement point, I'm only moving these two objects. So when you use the stretch command, you will almost always use a crossing window. If you select objects individually, then it's going to be a move command, which is fine. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. Now, some objects can't be stretched, and that object is an ellipse. If I try to stretch it, nothing happens. That's because an ellipse really doesn't have any vertexes or vertices like the rest of these objects do. I have these points, that we can grip to, the quadrant points, but that's it. But most everything else can be stretched. The offset command is one of the most useful commands in AutoCAD. It creates a new concentric circle, a new parallel line, or a new parallel curve. You can offset an object at a specified distance or through to a specific point. Let's try these out. Start off by opening up the offset examples file. Now here we have some basic and very simple contour lines, each of them parallel to each other. Here we have the center line of a road with some simple rectangular shaped lots. We can use the offset command to add new contour lines to our pond. Start the offset command. You do that by typing in the word offset, O-F-F-S-E-T, or just enter in the letter O. Now on the ribbon, the offset command is found up here in the Modify panel. It has its own special button that's right here in the bottom right. Start the command, and you have to give a distance. This will be the distance from the selected object or the original object to the new object that we're going to create. Let's type in 20 units. Press Enter. This means that the command is going to create a parallel line that's 20 units away from the original source line. Now select an object to offset. We'll go with the inside line. AutoCAD will automatically generate a preview of where the new line is going to go. If it's satisfactory, just left-click, and your new line is created. Now you can see here, these two lines are equally distant from each other all the way around its contour. They're parallel. The offset command is typically still active whenever you go and use it. So let's start it up again. We'll go with 20 units again. Press Enter, select the inside line, and there you go. Now we're still in it. We can pick our line again, or a new line, and start to offset. Now you can see here, it created two different closed polylines. That's because the distance between this first line and where it comes in again is smaller than our offset distance. It couldn't create the line, so it creates closed areas where appropriate. But that's okay, because that's what we would want to do in this case. Now maybe you don't want to offset by a specific distance, but maybe you want the new line to pass through a specific point. So start the offset command again, and instead of entering in a distance, type in the letter T, as you can see here, is for the word through, because we're going to select an object and offset it through another point. So let's go up to our center line, pick it, and now pick the edge of one of these lots. You can snap to it with an endpoint. And this puts our new line parallel to the original line, but travels through our specific point. We can do that again on the other side of the road. And there you go, you very quickly created the center line of your road with your two right-of-ways. Now let's do something really fancy. Say you want to offset the line to a different layer. A layer gives an object its characteristics, and it groups similar objects together, especially objects that need to look the same or similar to each other. We want this edge of our road to be on the road layer, not the center. So let's activate the road layer by clicking up here in this box in the layer panel. Click the black arrow and select road. Now, road was already set as being active in the file, but in case a change had been made, that's how you would do it. Now, any new object that we draw, for example, a line, will be drawn on the road layer. It's a solid continuous line that's magenta in color. So let's use the offset command again. Press enter and hit the letter L, or click on the word layer here in the command line. And now we have two options, current or source. Current will draw the new object on our current layer. Source will draw the object on the same layer as the source object you selected, just like it did here with our center line. It kept it on the center line, but that's not what we want to do. We want to create a parallel line to our center line of our road, but we want it to be drawn on the road layer. Pick the current option. And now we're going to do things the exact same way. Enter in a distance of 12. Press enter. And now pick the center line of the road again and offset it. Now we've drawn a road that has two lines. Each lane designated by those lines is 12 units in width. So our road is 24 units wide. If you're creating objects that are symmetrical, then you can save a lot of time and effort by only drawing half of it. That's where the mirror command comes in handy. Open up the mirror examples file. Here we have a profile of a bolt and a profile or half of a profile of a vase. To start the mirror command, you can just type in mirror, or you can type in just the two letters MI for the command alias. It's also found here on the Modify panel on the ribbon. The mirror command is really quite simple. You select your object or objects that you want to mirror, then press enter. Now you need to pick 2 points. These points will create an imaginary line that your object will be mirrored on. In the case of this vase, I've drawn a construction line right down the middle of it, and we're going to use that. You don't have to have the line there, but I'm showing you this line so that you can visualize it a bit easier. So we've selected our objects, and now we want to mirror it based on the endpoint here of the top of the vase. That's our starting point of our mirror line. Now as I pick the second point, you can see how AutoCAD is literally mirroring the line work. Now we want it to come right down to the bottom, so we're going to snap to that bottom point on the vase. Now once you've mirrored your object, you have the option of deleting the original object or not. In this case, we want to keep it. So we type in the letter N and press enter. And there we've completed our vase, and we only had to draw half of it. That's quite handy. Now let's undo this and erase that line. And let's try it again. Start the mirror command, select the object, press enter, snap with an end O snap, to the top of the vase, and then snap again. Wait, let's do it a little bit differently. Press your F8 button for your ortho command, and that will put it right in orthogonally. As you rotate around, you see that it mirrors about that line, and since the line essentially only goes in one of two places, there are only two options for you. But this keeps everything nice and tidy, nice and horizontal, and nice and straight, and it does it very quickly. Again, don't erase the object, and now we have a nice vase for our drawing. Now let's mirror something again, this bolt. Select the object, and you can pick it. You can use a crossing window, you can use a selection window. All of our selection tools are available to us. Press Enter, pick a point, and pick another point. Now this time, let's erase the object. Type in the letter Y for yes. Press Enter. So now we've gotten rid of our bolt, and we've turned it around all at the same time. Many times in your drawing, you will need lines to be a bit longer or a bit shorter. You'll also need your lines to butt up to other lines. That's where the trim and the extend commands come in. I've combined these two commands together because they're practically identical in function. The trim command will shorten your objects by cutting them away from different parts, and then the extend command will lengthen your lines to an extension line. Let's open up the trim and extend example file. Here we just have a series of different lines and circles, crossing each other and some not. If you draw some lines vertically like the ones shown here, and then some horizontally so that they cross back and forth. This way they're intersecting, or they possibly could intersect if they were extended or trimmed all the way. So let's start the trim command. Just type in trim, or just TR. Don't type in T because that will give you text. We don't want that. So we want TR for trim. It's also found in the modify panel on the ribbon, and it's a flyout. And you have the option of using either the trim command or the extend command. We're going to start off with trim. Now once you start the command, you have to pick an object. This is the cutting edge line. So if we select this line here, then press Enter, and you can pick more than one line. Now we've established our cutting line, or the trimming edge. Anything we click that's on one side of that line will disappear, just as if we took a knife and cut these lines right where our trimming edge is. So if I pick here, that goes away. Same with all of these. Now you can use all of your typical selection methods. Most of the time you're going to find that a crossing window or just a single pick like I did there will be enough to remove the unwanted items. I also find that the fence selection option is handy too. Make sure to pick the objects on the side of the line that you want to be removed on, the parts that you want to disappear. Now, let's try trimming some of these others. As you can see, these objects were not cut. The line did not physically go through them. Now, there is a way to get this cutting edge line to project all the way across your screen so that you can trim these other lines, because right now, if I try to click them, they won't do anything. But if I use the edge option, I can tell it to extend. And now it will trim these lines. That's great, because a lot of times you're going to find that you need to trim something or cut it away, but you didn't put in enough of a cutting edge line. So that's pretty handy. And you can always turn that off if you don't want it back on. The extend command works exactly the same way. It just makes the lines longer. Type EX for the extend command, or the full word extend. Or again, you can come up to the modify panel up here in the ribbon. Remember, if you can't find the extend command, it's probably hidden underneath the trim command. So now let's select some lines. We'll pick this one here. Press Enter. And again, you have the same options. You have your selection options here, your fence and crossing, and you have edge. We'll tell it to extend. And now I can pick all of these lines and they will automatically extend. Now that's a pretty cool feature. You can see that you can create a lot of line work just with the trim or the extend. Now let's take a look at the trim and extend commands up here. we have a series of circles that are concentric. Now, let's say that we need to create a keyhole for this here. Now, how can we go about doing that? Well, we're going to use the trim and extend commands, and we'll be able to create some items to it. Since we have most of what we need already, we can just start by trimming. Press enter. And let's select everything, because we can. You can use a trimming edge or an extension line and trim it at the same time. So if we want to cut out a little notch right here, we can. And we can start picking what we need. As you can see, we can do a lot of different things, because each of these lines are trimming lines. And we can keep trimming until we're done. Now let's select these and erase it. So we've made a quite different set of lines here. Let's use the trim command again. This time select the outer circle. Now, I can't trim these lines because there's nothing to cut to. But if I hold down the Shift key while in the trim command, it becomes an extend command. Well, that's pretty interesting. So in theory, I don't even need the extend command. I have the trim command available. So I can pick these lines, but if I want to draw something back, I hold down the Shift key and it will extend my selected objects. Now, the exact same thing is true for the extend command, only in opposite form. I can extend something, or I can hold down the Shift key and trim it. It's up to you. But that's a neat little trick. So if you're trimming and you cut it too short and need to put it back, don't stop the command and start a new one. Just hold down the Shift key and pick your object, and it will extend it back to the proper length that you need. That's a great time saver if you make a mistake. Just as the trim and extend commands work similarly, the fillet and the chamfer commands are also just as similar to each other. The fillet command creates a tangent arc between two lines. The chamfer creates an angled line between two lines. The processes are similar. You start the command, you define the arc radius for the fillet, or in the case of the chamfer, you define the distances for where the chamfer lines will go, and then you pick your lines. Either command is also very useful for quickly extending and or trimming two lines at a corner or at a vertex. Let's open up the chamfer fillet example file and click open. Here we have just some completed boxes with squared or round corners and some other lines that just aren't quite finished. Now, to start the fillet command, of course, you just type in the word fillet, F-I-L-L-E-T, or you can type in the letter F. The fillet command is found here on the Modify panel in the ribbon. It's also where you find the chamfer and the blend curves command, because they're all very similar to each other and work in almost identical ways. So we've started the command and we need to pick our objects. Click 1 and then click 2. And as you can see here, it gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. And there you go. It drew a tangent arc. Now, since this box was a polyline, it kept the entire thing as a polyline, which is nice. Start the fillet command again, hit the letter R for radius, and right now it's set to 2 units. Let's change that to 4 and press enter, and click on your box. There you go. If I hit enter again, I can just start going and I will use the last setting for the fillet radius that was used. And since this was a polyline, it erased that old fillet and replaced it with a new one. So that's the fillet command. The chamfer command works in almost the exact way, except it's a squared corner and not a rounded one. It's found right here in the Modify panel in the ribbon. Now I can use the settings that are already here, but I don't know exactly what they are. Defining the distances, though, for the chamfer are a bit more complicated than the fillet command. There are 2 distances to define. we want to chamfer two different lines, in this case, these two edges of our box. So to define the distances, press in the letter D, press Enter. Right now it's set to 3 units. Now you can make these distances to be the same if you like, and the majority of the time that's probably what you're going to want to do. Now the first distance will be along the first line you select. So if we pick this line first, this distance will be applied. Then when we pick our second line, the second distance will be applied to it. Let's start off by just leaving it at the number 3 for both distances. And this will draw a chamfer that's 3 units from the endpoint in, and then 3 units from this endpoint in to the right. As you can see our preview, this is what it's going to look like. Just puts a nice little 45-degree angle, 3 units in from each endpoint. If we start the command again, type D for distance. Now let's make the first one to be 1 unit, and we'll make the second distance to be 3. As you saw here, since we typed in 1 for the first unit, it will default to copy the same value, because typically you will want them to be the same, but it's not always the case. This is going to be our first line, so it's going to come back 1 unit here, but then come up 3 units. You'll see in the preview. We pick our first line, and then we pick our second, and that's another chamfer. When you fillet or chamfer, lines can abut or go past or not even touch each other. Let's look at one of these other examples here. So if I go to fillet something with the radius 2, for example, these two lines don't even connect, but AutoCAD will extend them as needed or trim them as needed. Same case up here, they're being trimmed. So the fillet command and the chamfer command are both two very useful commands to clean things up. Now the chamfer command's command alias is CHA. Press Enter. Let's give it a distance of 2 and 2. And you can see here, it trims everything up nice and neat. Or in that case, extended the lines. It cleans it up quite well. Now many times we don't want an arc or a chamfer. We just want the two lines to meet at their intersections to create a corner. You'll do that a lot. You can use either command to do this. Just set your fillet radius to 0 and pick your points. And it makes a radius of 0, which is nothing, so that means there is no radius. Chamfer is the same thing. Set your distance to 0 in both cases, and then pick your two lines. And there's your corner. Now there's another way to do this. So if your radius is set to 4, now let's say you want this radius to be 0, well you can start your fillet command, hit radius, type in 0 and go about creating your fillet. Or, regardless of what the radius is set to, hold down the Shift key and pick your 2 points. And now we got a square corner. The same trick will work with the chamfer command. Now, if you try out the Blend Curves command, the Blend Curves command will create a tangent or smooth spline object between the endpoints of 2 open curves or lines, arcs, etc. So, if I want an arc that's smooth and tangent, meaning it starts in this line, extends out and begins to curve back around, comes this way, that's kind of hard to do. I can't really do that with the fillet or chamfer command, but the Blend Curves command will do that. And it too has a preview, so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So I can pick 2 different objects and get what I need. Now these are splines, so you can go and you can edit them in different ways. We'll talk more about splines in a different section. But if you have 2 objects, and they can be lines, polylines, or arcs, and you can use the fillet command or the chamfer command on them to close them up around the edge or put a corner on it.